The Becoming Unsilenced podcast is about awakening to the greatest potential you always were. Listen to teachings, interviews, and inspiring stories of others who have challenged the accepted, expanded possibility, and merged modern-day life with ancient wisdom to discover their greatest potential. When you become fearless, you become limitless. Now be inspired by today's episode. Well, welcome to the Becoming Unsilenced podcast. I'm your host, Vicki, and today we're going to be continuing my conversation on living an intuitive journey. I started this conversation last month in March. And my intention is to just once a month give you kind of a brief update on what's happening on my own journey of living from intuition. My purpose for doing these is so that you can get a little bit of an idea of what it looks like to take a new and different approach than what a lot of people take, or what I used to traditionally take in life, where we're looking at listening to our own heart and internal voice as a guide first, rather than analyzing and doing so many of the things that we were taught to do. So I'm just going to be sharing with you the insights, the lessons, some of the decisions I've made throughout this last month where I've been guided from this intuitive space. So what I like to share with you is the learning I've had from life situations, my commitment to alignment before action, which just truly means being in that internal harmony space before I make a decision and take action. And then this living from a life of inner guidance. So in the last episode, I shared with you that one of the decisions I was going to be making upcoming was whether to put my house on the market. As my daughter nears high school graduation soon, one of the things I've been looking forward to is living in a different geographical area. And my house is unique. It has some apartments attached to it, so it's a triplex. And I have long spent a lot of time debating on, am I going to sell it? Am I going to keep it and rent it out? And I've realized, one of the things I really clearly realized this month is all of that time up to this point in time was kind of wasted in this analytical process. Because that's a decision I really could not make until this month when I made it. And when it came time to make that decision, I had to take into account, what's the real estate market right now in my area? If I am going to keep the property, who's going to manage it for me? Some things that just really I couldn't have made those decisions 6 months ago or a year ago because things change. So I did decide to put the house on the market. I did some research with 2 realtors in the area, and the information that they gave me was good, upbeat about the market. And then I checked in with my own inner guidance, which said, yeah, go ahead and list it. And I'm not attached to the outcome of it. If it sells or it doesn't sell, I'm just offering that up to the universe to say, whatever is meant to go, let it go. And whatever is meant to stay, let it stay. So if you heard me talk last month about Tosha Silver and the book that she wrote called It's Not My Money, that is a phrase that she uses a lot in her books. So whatever is meant to go, let it go. Whatever is meant to stay, let it stay. One of the other things I did this month was I spoke at a waste industry conference. This was a conference that was supposed to take place last year and then was delayed because of COVID. And it was interesting timing because it really got me back into reconnecting and curiosity with this piece around leadership that I love. This last year, I've focused a lot on personal development and kind of leading from a personal space, but it reconnected me with my love of leadership at an organizational level, and in particularly the philosophy that I've developed that I call NeuroLinguistic heart-centered leadership, which is all about leading, understanding our brain and body, how language impacts that from the leadership aspect, and then leading from the heart, which I consider a people first place of leadership. And there's something about this that feels super important for the future. It's just kind of an intuitive nudge right now for me that this has been the right timing to kind of expand my writing and philosophy around this area. And that connected to me to one of the books that has been a valuable resource this month called Search Inside of Yourself. And Search Inside of Yourself is the book written about Google's use of mindfulness and emotional intelligence in the workplace. They really are taking this idea of mindfulness, language, how the brain works, and they've put it into work in their environment and seeing some fantastic results. In fact, now each of their employees is required to do the Search Inside Yourself program at Google. And it mirrors so much of the work that I've already been working on, and has been a great resource for me to dive deeper into learning. So one of the other journeys I'm on right now is in a journey of intuitive eating. And I, like many other people, have been on numerous diets throughout my life. You could probably name a diet. I've probably tried it out. And what just amazes me is the statistics around traditional dieting are so blatant that people who go on traditional diets statistically have more likelihood of ending up gaining more weight in the end than actually losing weight and keeping it off. And this comes to some language around this too. So losing, if you lose your car keys, you're going to search until you find them. So why would we even use that phrase? This comes to the linguistic part of leading our life. If we are wanting to get rid of some pounds or some excess weight, why would we focus on losing it? Because it already sends a subconscious message to our brain that we have to re-find what we've lost. Things that we lose, we have to search our hardest to re-find them. And that's what ends up happening in the traditional diet sense is, diets work well for a certain amount of time. They're depend on your willpower and changing long-term change of habits, which most people are doing from a very surface level space. And so long-term, those new habits don't stick, and it ends up back in a space of weight gain. And because I'm focusing every other aspect of my life on following inner guidance, it just really became important to me to also do that in the realm of eating. What I didn't know is there is a huge amount of resources out there around intuitive eating. And that's been exciting for me. One of the books that's been important on my journey this month is a book by Janine Roth, who is a significant player on the intuitive eating learning stage. And the book that I read is called Women, Food, and God. And it's really impactful. So what I've learned about myself in being aware and watching my eating this month is, let me back up just one space, because intuitive eating, one of the foundations of this is that we give up dieting forever. It just essentially becomes not a part of your world anymore. And learning how to give yourself permission to eat and to not judge what you're eating, but also then to really lean in and listen to what you're hungry for and what your body is asking become the focuses of this practice. And I call it a practice because it is the same as like a meditative practice. We have to follow the same principles of being aware, listening, and then taking action from that centered space. So one of the things I've realized is was so out of touch with my natural levels of hunger that it was really hard for me to even distinguish when I was hungry and when I wasn't hungry. And then the other thing I'm super out of touch with is, what type of food do I even want to eat? What type of food do I enjoy eating? And so it's been fun for me this month to watch, pay attention to when I'm hungry, and also then to ask this question, what are you hungry for? And then to see how different foods either kind of intuitively bring joy, or some that kind of made me go, I don't want that again. Another resource that I used this month was I've had an RTT session. RTT stands for Rapid Transformational Therapy. It's one of the newer techniques out there. By Marissa Peer developed it, and I became familiar with it through the Lively show, Jess Lively, and then actually participating in it through the Lively Foundation with a RTT practitioner in Australia. And RTT is a combination of NeuroLinguistic programming, which I'm certified in already and very familiar with, and hypnotherapy, cognitive behavioral therapy, and it brings all of those pieces together. There's also some root of positive psychology in there. It brings all of those pieces together to really quickly go deep, help you find the source of issues, and then transform them. And it's a commitment. There's now for 21 days, I will be listening to a recording that came out of that RTT session that just helps to reestablish the neural pathways in a healthy direction around eating. So this RTT session I did around emotional eating, and it was really, really phenomenal. What came up out of it is that I choose to eat as a way of staying silent and not saying things that I perceive will upset or throw the other people in the room off balance. And many times, so in RTT, it takes you back to a couple memories from your earlier life. And in each of those memories for me, I was being quiet about something that I really wanted to do that would have made me happy, some things that were like playful, joyful, but I perceived that telling the people around myself that I wanted those things would have caused a lot of problems. And actually, in reality, when I was a child, they would have caused a lot of distress. So that habit protected me back then, but I'm an adult now. I know I can own what I want. I can choose now to be guided to do things for my own happiness. So now it's actually seeing this habit for what it is and being able to, really work with it now on a new level of awareness. So that led me to really understanding that I had fallen back into an old way of decision making. I had fallen back into analyzing and pursuing kind of some results instead of my own happiness. So I think it's very traditional that we look for things that are going to bring security into our world instead of happiness, instead of trusting that when we pursue things for our happiness, the security will follow. And so it helped me see some areas in my own life where I was putting obligation and responsibility before happiness. So I'm flipping that script in the next month, and I'm going to really be pursuing some specific things that honor my happiness. And this really is around this upcoming relocation that I have for myself, because I was looking at it from this analytical perspective around finances and money and some things that kind of began to feel really heavy. And then I had to go back to, why am I doing this relocation to start with? It's truly because I want to experience some things like living in a warmer climate. I want to be maybe closer to the ocean. I want to be in an area that allows me to do some fun things that aren't available to me here. And so I'm flipping that script now in the next few weeks as I look for the place that I want to relocate to and evaluate it based on the things that are going to bring me happiness, and then look for the stability to fill in. Okay, so where have I seen some clear inner guidance in my voice this month? Well, it really has been around not big things, like my inner voice didn't speak to me in any grand way this month. And on one hand, that kind of frustrated me because I really wanted some details to fill in that didn't fill in. So that was frustrating to me. And then part of that was just to this reminder to relax, trust that when there's a need to take action, going to be guided and you're going to know exactly what action to take. And so the inner guidance that I did receive was focus on today and begin writing a series of articles called the Courage to Change series. The Courage to Change phrase, interestingly enough, that was the first name of what is now my business page today. But I started that page years ago under the name The Courage to Change. So that title is very significant to me. And so when I had this kind of intuitive guidance to write this series and I began to pencil it out, I quickly realized that this was the outline of a book that I want to publish. And now in this particular moment, I've just been guided to write each lesson, publish it out there, and I'm doing that through my own blog posts through medium.com. And then when I'm done with that down the road, I can publish it all together into a book. Now, what's interesting is at the beginning of the year, I really had this sense of inner guidance that publishing was going to be something ahead of me. And I was working on a book and manuscript that kind of focused on my life more in depth, and kind of finished that. But when I finished that manuscript, it just felt like it wasn't the right time to bring it into the world. So I just had been sitting patiently like, okay, publishing is something that's out there, but now that's become very clear that this Courage to Change series is where I'm going to be focused on. And as of me recording this today, the first 3 articles of that series, or the first 3 lessons, are out. So you can go check those out. I'll link them below. And the next thing I had some really clear insight on was there are certain situations in my life where I still have the tendency to help others at my own harm. So at the expense of myself and damaging myself. And this has really caused me a lot of frustration and emotion when I realized this, because I've worked so diligently to kind of flip that around to a space where I'm where I'm tending to my own self first so that I can give out of the abundance of that and not in a depleting way. And as I sat with this lesson, I became aware that I think the roots of this tendency in me probably go back to another lifetime. And if you're not really familiar with this idea of things coming with us from past lifetimes, it's something that I really have come to believe is very, very true, that we come here for our own particular course of learning and growth. And some of those things reasons are to work out things that happened in previous lifetimes. So this idea of almost like sacrificing myself to help others feels like something really strong that came with me from another lifetime, and probably something that I came here to heal in this lifetime. Sometimes people have used the analogy of like playing a video game, like you're here to just level up and pass this level of something in this lifetime. So I like that analogy. And it just gives a more lighthearted perspective to it. But it does feel that way. And so one of the things I did this month was I developed just a series of questions for me to ask myself in these situations where I feel very pulled emotionally to make a decision to help someone that might not be in my best interest. I just, developed a series of questions that I can ask myself to evaluate whether I'm making this decision from a healthy space or from, an overgiving space that might harm myself. And having people around me that know that I can rely on help reflect back to me in the moment where I'm making a decision from is going to be super helpful going forward for me. Okay, and then the other key awareness that I've had is the only responsibility, and I said it that way for purpose, that I have is to live my greatest life each day. This podcast is called Awakening to the Greatest Potential You Always Were. And sometimes I think I viewed that as a destination that I'm going to get to in the future. Someday I will be at that greatest potential. But what really became clear to me this month through my inner intuitive connections is the only thing that I have the ability to do is live my best life each day. And when I live my best life each day, this is a concept called perfect present, perfect future. When I was first introduced to it, I was in coaching school through Coach U. And it was part of the curriculum that we learned, the personal development curriculum called Perfect Present, Perfect Future. That the days I replicate ahead of me are most likely going to be copies of what I'm doing today. So if I'm not living up to the best that I can do today, probably not going to do that tomorrow. And there's not going to be a day in the future that I arrive at this, perfect moment that I'm perfectly living up to my greatest ability. But I have the opportunity to live and do that every day. So that's what I've been focused on. And even in this writing this Courage to Change series, one of the things I would have done in the past is I would have got all consumed with what that was going to look like at the end and how good it was going to feel to have this whole series written. And then I would have got overwhelmed by how much work there was to do in it. And I probably would have given up after I had one article published. But instead, what I am able to do is to look at each moment each day and say, okay, what is the best that I can give into this thing in this moment? And some days you have more to give than others. I've had some days this last month where I didn't have much to give, and I just let that be okay. And then the next thing that has really become clear to me is in this balance of being versus doing. I've strived to really be very present in everything I do in my life and not kind of get lost in the mental fog. And I think for a while that seemed to me to be like two different things. Like you could either be present or you could be doing something. And one of the things I've really connected with this month is that I can do things from a significant state of presence. And that brings a lot of peace, a lot of joy, a lot of excitement into doing things. I want to share some fun and flowing things that happened to me this month. And the biggest one that stood out when I was preparing my notes for this is I've reconnected with a cousin that when my family was split away from the religious group that I grew up in, I was 15 and this cousin was 3. And I babysat with him a lot from when he was born to when he was 3 years old. So he was someone that I really enjoyed and, just one day was just suddenly disconnected from. And here 30 some years later, he's no longer part of that organization, church, religious organization, and hasn't been for a while. But I just felt one day just kind of an intuitive nudge to reach out and connect. And it's been really rewarding for me to have that connection and the conversations that have come from it. And it's added a layer of dimension and depth and a connection back to some family that was missing for me that I didn't even really know I was missing. So that's been super, super fun for me. And then I had a week, it was last week, where, I have some big things in my life that are ahead, some big decisions. And I was just not feeling, like I'd mentioned earlier, not a huge shout of guidance on any of them. And I was feeling frustrated by that last week. And I just, was asking for a sign, send me a sign. Let me know if there's a direction that there's something I'm missing here. Send me a sign. And so on several times last week, I had somebody reach out of the blue out to me and say, oh my gosh, I know you're considering some big things, but just want to let you know it's all going to work out just fine. And then it culminated on Friday of last week where I had 2 more friends reach out to me and with similar message of just like, I'm so excited for all that's going to unfold for you and in the next days ahead. And then, if you've listened to this podcast, the number 222 has been kind of a guiding factor for me. And I even listed my home for sale on 322-21. So that, and I didn't realize that until after I'd listed it. And, but several times that last Friday, my mom was needing to register some appliances. She had lost the registration cards. And I said, you know what, I'm just going to pop online and do it from there. And when I popped onto the website to register them, the clock on the oven, like the video just like zoomed in on this clock on the oven and the time was 12:22 on the oven. So it's like, oh, that's no coincidence. And then about an hour and a half later, I was in a parking lot somewhere starting to back out, and here a car just came shooting behind me. And of course, I saw it and stopped and just happened to see as it shot by, the license plate had in the center middle of it 222. So, and as I was sharing that with one of my friends that reached out to me, she said, "See, the universe is listening." So that just really put me at ease to know that, yeah, when I need to know what action to take, it's gonna come. So, and some new books flowed into my world. I mentioned the one earlier, The Women, Food, and God by Janine Roth, and then Search Inside Yourself by, I don't know how to pronounce his name fully, but Meng, I think. If you're interested in the book, just to do Search Inside of Yourself. And then the other book that came because of the Search Inside of Yourself book was The Joy of Living by Yongey Munyar Rinpoche. He's known as the happiest man on earth. And what I love about his book is it brings together all of the best minds of Western medicine and neuroscience with the best in mindfulness, and uses neuroscience to explain why the mindfulness techniques used in the Buddhist culture work. So it's just been a fascinating book for me, which has led to one of the significant activities that's been helpful for me this month is a loving kindness meditation practice. I'm going to lead you just through a brief version of that as we wind down today. And then the other activities that have been super helpful for me this month is The Work by Byron Katie. And if you've listened to me for a while, that you'll know I've probably referenced her work some. I have some classes that I've taught on some of her processes. But this month, I downloaded all of the worksheets from her site. You can go to, I think it's just thework.com, and there's a resource section. And this is a series of worksheets where she helps you work through recognizing the stories that you're telling yourself that are causing pain and suffering. And so I love the first one is called the Judge Your Neighbor worksheet. And then there's a 4 series of questions with a turnaround statement that she leads through. So essentially what it does is helps you to see where you're telling yourself a story that seems like absolute reality. So I encourage you to check out her work, and that this is the type of thing that I explore each month in the classes that I offer. So if you are interested in, I offer a one class a month where we meet once a month, and there's always a resource, something to explore and learn. And then in the class, we actually work on application of how to work through that. So this month, we actually worked through, each person who attended class worked through a process or a difficult situation that they were facing that they wanted some insight on. And then RTT was the other activity that I found to be super helpful this month. And again, that's rapid transformation therapy. And I'm just going to link in the notes the therapist that I did the session with from Australia, because she was phenomenal. So, and then the loving kindness meditation. So what I'm going to ask you to do as we wind down this session today, we're going to just do a moment of loving kindness towards yourself. So I want you to just sit with your spine upright, hands in your lap with palms up, maybe crossed, just resting lightly across each other. maybe just, move your elbows forward a little bit so they're not clasped up against your side, so they're just out comfortably. And balance your head. Just I I learned this month. I didn't really know there's like this magical balance point that relieves the tension on your head, so you can just kind of, move your head to this point where it feels like it's just a nice balance. It actually has your chin like tipping forward just a little bit more than what we might normally hold it. And then just kind of rest your tongue on the upper forward roof of your mouth right behind your teeth, and just let your lips fall partly open. And I want you just to let your gaze, you can do this with your eyes open or closed, it doesn't really matter. But just going to go ahead and just rest in a moment of just resting in this position and breathing. So we'll just do that for a moment. And now I want you just to begin to scan your body and notice, starting at the top of your head, notice any sensations, any areas of your body that might have pain or discomfort. Just go ahead and scan down through your head, through your neck, through your shoulders, arms, torso, and all the way down your body. Just noticing that some parts of your body probably really don't have any sensation at all in them. And then there's parts of your body that might have a lot of sensation in them. Just notice as you're doing this if any thoughts are traveling through your mind. That's okay. Just notice them there. And then I want you to begin to bring gratitude for yourself and your body. I'm so grateful that I have a mind that can think and that can reason, and ears that help me listen to things, and eyes to help me see the world. I'm so grateful that I have this amazing body that carries me throughout my tasks every day without really demanding much of me. It knows how to automatically take care of itself. And I'm so grateful that my mind is here, that it has the ability to think, the ability to create, the ability to feel, the ability to experience joy, sadness, anger, happiness. And I'm so grateful, so appreciative of the peace and joy and happiness that I feel right now. And I wish that in all moments I could always feel this peace and joy and happiness. And then just go ahead and rest your awareness for a moment, just back to whatever it is that your mind wants to do. Just rest it openly without trying to direct its attention. And know that you have completed a loving kindness meditation practice. So, That's my sharing for this month, and I look forward to hearing what resonated with you, what maybe sparked a curiosity about your own life and your own world. And then if you want to come join for the monthly classes, I'm going to leave a link below for you to get signed up and register for those classes. And until next time, live your greatest life today. I'll see you soon. Thanks for being here. If you have a topic or question you want to hear more about, send it to us at the email below. Have an inspired day.